sea sucker soup on a hot summer day. Coffee comes back in a nerve-wracking way. The dishes and laundry take the garbage out. What a day, what a day, what a day.
Well, welcome to Capital Region today. I'm so happy that you're joining us today. We've got a great lineup today and we're going to be talking history and theater. So we're going to be starting out with, of course, our first guest, which will be talking about Harbinger Theater, and they are going to be producing that show over at the Albany Barn, and we're going to hear from Patrick White, who's the director of both those shows, and he's brought two of his actors with him today. Then from there, we're going to be talking about the history of Saratoga. What a historic city that is, and we hear about it in many of the movies, talking about Saratoga. But we're going to find out maybe the ins and outs of the history of Saratoga from a historian, Hollis, who wrote a book. Actually, he's written a lot of books because I have them all right here on my desk. And then we're going to be talking about a filmmaker. And what he's done is, I guess two of them, they're writer and producers. One of them is here today, Anthony. And we're going to be talking about Benedict Arnold, a hero betrayed, or was he a hero, or was he a traitor? Well, we're going to get the skinny on this one, I think. But we're going to start right out, of course, with our first guest, which will be Patrick White. He's the director of admissions and Hurricane Diane, and that's both going to be over at the Albany Barn. So let's roll right over here to Patrick and find out about these two plays. One was delayed and picking up now.
Right.
What's happening?
Hi, Ann.
Hi.
I was directing admissions for Circle Theater Players at Sand Lake Center for the Arts, and unfortunately, we had to cancel it due to positive COVID tests. And
those nasty little bumps in the road.
Yeah, well, disruption all around. But fortunately, we were able to find a schedule for it in Albany Barn. So we're going to move the entire set, cast, and production and do it in the Albany Barn.
How easy will that be? Because is your set? Sometimes you have a pretty good set.
Yeah.
You got to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Is the stage the same size? No, there you go.
Not quite. It's a little bit bigger, actually, which is good because she can make. Yeah, it's easier to make the set, the playing space smaller than to.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the other thing is I had already started rehearsal on Hurricane Diane, and that was scheduled, and that's going up February 17th through the 26th. So, admissions got canceled in January 14th it was supposed to open. Now it's opening March 3rd. So I have a project in between, and then we're getting back to admissions. They're
I don't know how you do
rehearsing on Zoom and
Zoom.
yes, you've heard of it?
Well, from you. From your site anyway. But the thing is that you teach classes, you direct. You have it all, and with you, you brought a student with you, right?
No. Actually,
you're not a student?
Both guests.
How do you know this guy?
Both actors in the production
Amanda.
today are not acting class students.
Oh, they are?
The
Okay.
company sort of grew out of class, but the shows are cast independently of class.
Okay.
And Amanda Dorman is, a fantastic actor. I've known a long time. Yeah, 20 years, something. Yeah.
Through theater.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've
Same
been
circle of
acting
friends.
for a while? Mm-hmm. So what was your first production? Just, you don't need to answer, but I'm always
fine.
interested in where.
Locally, I stage managed a production of Hamlet in 2000.
Hamlet?
Yeah.
What a range.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did not. Which
Okay.
one?
The one Chris Foster was in.
Oh, my partner
Yeah, that's
played
Chris
Claudius.
was it.
Claudius,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
See what we do on this show?
Mm-hmm.
This show is very spontaneous, so you never know what you're going to learn or what you're going to find out about the person you came to.
There you go.
So Amanda, you're playing Diane.
I am.
And Diane is a god?
She is. She is the
Yes.
current.
God,
She is the
yes.
current incarnation of Dionysus,
Okay, Diane.
the demigod. So Dionysus and Bacchus, the
Yeah,
Bacchus
Bacchus.
from the Italian
The wine,
side.
the wine, the wine.
Oh yeah, all about the wine. Yeah, so she claims to be, she's the god of agriculture, wine, and song.
Okay.
And that's what we touch on in this play.
And she has 4 women that yeah.
She has, her plan is to save the world. She has finally had enough of the humans and their desecration of the earth. And so she's coming in and stepping in to help save it.
Are you going to fix the climate change?
That's the plan. Yep, I just got to get these 4 women on board and then we're ready to go. The world will be a better place.
Yeah, and how did you pick that play?
Yeah, it's a great play. It won an Obie Award in 2019. It's just a fantastic play. It's funny. It deals with social issues, and I think I had seen a couple of adaptations of the Bacchae before the pandemic closed us all down. And I think that we're at a point where, like the Greeks, feel very close to us, like elemental. Like we're down to dealing with life and death issues, and on a very primal level. And so to have Dionysus on stage, coming back to a cul-de-sac in Red Bank, New Jersey, and trying to recruit these 4 housewives, it just felt right. It just it deals with the ancient verities colliding into our disposable culture. And that's the clash, and that's the comedy, and
So it's a comedy.
yeah, it's very funny. Dionysus,
It's an issue, but a comedy.
Dionysus is disguised as a Butch Dyke landscaper from a commune in Vermont. So she comes down and seduces these 4 housewives, a pharmaceutical saleswoman and an editor of HGTV magazine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So who wrote this?
This is by Madeline George. She's a Pulitzer finalist. She writes for the TV show Only Murders in the Building, Steve Martin and Martin Short's series.
Okay.
And she's a brilliant woman. She said she picked up this idea reading Michael Pollan's Botany of Desire.
Oh, Michael Palin, right?
Yeah, which was about Johnny Appleseed being sort of an American Dionysus, going across the country and
Spreading the good stuff.
Right.
Whether it's seeds, it's metaphorical.
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
So the play, age, any?
Age appropriate?
Yeah.
I think you can go to teenagers. I think you could go over a 12-year-old's head, but I think 13 and up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a message there.
There is.
How do you feel about the part? How did you get into the skin of the part?
It was actually easy to put on.
Okay.
She's incredibly bombastic, and so it's a side that I'm being allowed to explore and release that is not really appropriate in most situations.
Okay.
So I'm having a really, really good time.
And the play is Hurricane Diane. It's all about, so you become a hurricane coming into the...
Absolutely a hurricane.
Yeah, what a great idea. And I especially like the idea of that we're addressing some of the issues in our, we really need to look at what's going on, the disposable, and one of the things I noticed is like we're getting more disposable rather than less because people are ordering stuff and it's delivered. And I know I think in all of this pandemic, I had 4 things delivered. And I got these boxes. It's like,
Right.
Now what do you do with these boxes? Well, then I fill them with stuff and send it to my grandkids. But anyway, but the point is that the foods, when you look at food and food delivery, all these order your meals, I don't do that, but, and I look at all the packaging that they show, that,
Right.
Here, we're showing, you got this little bag of paprika and all this crap that has to go into a landfill.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So do a good job.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
So I just got to get these ladies on board.
Yeah, so we're going to bring on Vlad next. So, but thank you, Amanda, and I wish
Thank
you
you
very
so
well
much.
in your part.
Thank you.
And I hope to see the play.
I
It'll be
hope
fun.
so.
Yeah. So Patrick, Vlad, now how does Vlad come in?
Vlad is in admissions.
He's in admissions.
That's
Okay, so
correct.
I got
He's
him
in the
mixed up.
first
Okay,
play.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. So if I made an error, so you're admissions. Okay.
Right.
Good. So we're going to be
And-
talking about that. That's the first one that you're doing.
That's right. Well, the first one that I rehearsed, but the second one at the barn. It's
Okay.
going to be at Albany Barn March 3rd through March 12th. Thursday through Saturday again at 7:30 p.m. And admissions is about a admissions director in a Vermont private school, and her son, played by Vlad, has his dream set on attending Yale, and he is deferred. And his best
Yale.
friend, his best friend, with a lower SAT score and less extracurricular activities, gets in, and his best friend is black. And Charlie,
Oh, so this is where you get into the,
affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
And Charlie gets his nose bent out of shape for about 10 or 12 pages and goes on a tear about the unfairness of what has been dealt him. And it takes up a lot of issues of privilege and
Of course, there's no white privilege, right?
of course not. And, which he comes around to see, and he becomes, in some ways, like Diane, an agent of change. He makes a decision in the play that acknowledges his privilege and seeks to redress that in a drastic way. And it's also a comedy.
A comedy.
Yeah.
He gets these heavy topics, and he goes, "Oh, no, by the way, it's a comedy."
Funny stuff.
What? Who knew? But anyway, Vlad, so how long have you been acting? You're a young gentleman here.
Yeah, I'm 21 years old,
Okay.
and I started acting when I was 19.
19, so
And,
not very long.
No, not long at all. This is only my second production ever, yeah. So
Right,
it's
and
very
you've got
exciting.
a great leader.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you've only been doing this a couple of years. Are you studying acting?
Yes, I attend the University at Albany, where
Okay.
I am double majoring in business, economics, and theater with a minor in acting.
That's pretty smart, actually, to have to. You
Yeah.
never know. You never know what you're going to need.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the part, and how did it feel to get into this part of being an angry man and then coming around? Because that takes a lot of change in a character.
Yeah, I love the part. It was recommended to me from my professor/director at UAlbany, and
Okay.
as soon as I read the play, I could see myself playing as Charlie, and I really was able to more or less like connect with that character versus the ones I played previously, and
So what did you play in previously?
I
Just
did,
to get an idea of what your range
I
is.
played the officer in a dream play, which was far more difficult for me to relate to compared to a 17-year-old high school student.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, that's they do that with kids in 9th grade. They got to play these parts like kind lady and stuff. Really tough parts that are,
Yep.
they don't even have an idea of what they never have any experience at all. So how did you feel about this part? Because this is kind of a social, and he made it into a comedy. Oh.
Yeah.
So because I don't know, it'd be tough to be angry and about something that maybe isn't really right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that Charlie says that I was a little nervous about at first, thinking like, what would the audience perceive
Did they
it
really
as?
think
But
it was
yeah.
you saying that?
Yeah, exactly. But I think he has a really beautiful character arc that by the end of the show, everyone could really sympathize with him and feel for him and see where he's coming from.
Yeah. So this is a character-driven play, even though it's a comedy.
Yeah, but there's the central issue, and
Yeah.
it touches on that. But yeah, they're very strong characters in it.
Yeah. And how many are in?
It's a cast of 5.
5.
Yep.
Okay. So you have so you've got the two. Do you have the two?
Yeah,
Volunteers?
his mother and father, and then there's a secretary at the school, and the next door neighbor, which is his best
Okay,
friend's
so you never see
mother.
the other person.
No, it's an all-white cast, sort of underscoring.
I'm not going there.
underscoring the unfairness of it all.
Yeah.
But and and through his tirade, it's sort of like a truth-telling thing, and he touches on issues, and you will feel uncomfortable. And there are people like with this all-white cast, you're like, is this really funny? And it's a challenging play in that manner.
But it was designed that way.
Yeah, and again, Joshua Harmon, he's a brilliant playwright, and I think it's an important work. And
Well, you know, I have to say something, Patrick. You stretch when you do plays. I mean, you did Men on Boats and what was an all-female cast. Go
yes,
figure. Go
yes.
figure. So I'm surprised you're not doing this with an all-black cast.
Oh. Well, I did.
I'm kidding.
No, I did Inspector Calls, which
I know,
was
and that
the
was-
Victorian
that was
melodrama
wonderful. She
with
was
an all-black cast.
wonderful.
Yeah, Angelique.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
was wonderful
which
in that.
was
I
just
saw
in
that
Chris's
play, yeah.
Fireflies.
Yeah. So I love the idea that he will stretch and think of things, you know, just out of the box.
Right, and that's pretty much why we formed Harbinger Theaters, to do these new plays. You know, when you were sitting during the pandemic doing Zoom theater and doing readings and reading new works, and I just had this urge and, you know, the opportunity to do these two shows back to back. I couldn't pass it up, even though, you know, it's a ton of work, and I'm asking a bunch of not just my casts, but the people backstage, people sitting at box office, you know, audiences.
Yeah.
We are doing a package for the audience. If you come see Hurricane Diane, you can buy a $10 ticket to admissions. So 2 plays for $25. And
I think that's a great deal. that
yeah,
you've got there.
yeah. And you know, these are plays, and The Christians was our first play.
Yeah. And
Is
that
a-
got wonderful reviews.
It got great reviews. It got great houses. We made a lot in donations. People really responded to it, and we got a lot of people in that have never been in the Albany Barn. We've got ministers in. We got a bunch of Albany students in. So yeah, you know, we just want to push things forward. And you know, when you're sitting at home for a year and a half, you know, you feel like you're ready to bust out. And theater may have been the most severely affected industry.
Oh my gosh.
But it's also going to flourish like
I think
like
people
no one else.
are anxious to get back, and I'm sure that Vlad here is anxious to get back on the stage and get that
Yeah.
on your resume, because you've got that as a minor. And I think that these things, are you gonna be in another one, are you, I hope soon, and keep
hopefully.
keep on a roll with that. Vlad, it was a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for
Thank you
being
for
on the
having me.
show. How did you get the name Harbinger?
I just like the sound of it, and you know, yeah, and I saw it like, you know, it could be a harbinger of doom or a harbinger of spring, and I like the idea of an announcement of something new
Yeah.
coming. And right now we're focusing on Capital Region premieres with underrepresented writers, and I have a bunch of actors who are first time to the stage, like Vlad. You know, he's worked at Albany, but it's the first time in Capital Region Theater. So I like the idea of, you know, announcing new stuff, and, you know, and it sounds worker.
Well, you know, I have to applaud what you do. I've seen you do some of your acting class, and I'm impressed with what you do. I think that anyone who really wants to get their feet in the water, so to speak, should check with you to see. And how often do you have your classes?
Every Sunday morning, 10:30 to 1.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have, I bet you have a waiting list almost with it, yeah.
I could take
Well,
more
with the-
students.
With the pandemic, I'm sure it.
Well, actually, when I moved back into the Albany Barn in November, I had I was fully, you know, I had too many students. I had like 25 students, which is a lot
It's
to
a
get
lot.
into 2.5 hours. Everyone doing a 10-minute scene. It became, you know, but the response to get back on stage was, you know, really, really strong during the pandemic. It's since, you know, lessened a bit now that there are opportunities for showcases.
We just need a
and
lot of
things
actors,
like
because we have so many theaters. I know you have
Right.
one, but there's a zillion of, I shouldn't say a zillion, but
No.
there's a lot of them. There's about 20, I think, in the area.
that. I counted 65, but
Well, who's counting?
Yeah,
Who's
yeah.
counting? Patrick, it's always a pleasure to have you
And-
on the show and to tell our viewers about theater, and that they can, how do they get their tickets, just quickly?
sure. Eventbrite, you can search either play, Hurricane
And you're on
Diane or
Facebook, too.
Admissions or Harbinger Theater, and Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, so you can get that.
Yep.
Thanks so much for being
Thanks,
here.
Ann. Great to
We're
see
gonna
you.
be talking, now we're gonna go to Saratoga Springs. Hey,
How you doing?
nice to meet you, Hollis.
Nice to meet you.
And I love your derby.
Thank you.
Is that a derby?
That's a derby. It's not a
That is-
bowler. It's a little bit tall.
Oh, okay. that is true. See, I got it right. One of those few things that I get right. And you came in garments that are appropriate.
Period dress.
Yeah,
Period dress.
I didn't say costume.
Very good, thank
Yeah.
you.
I was corrected once, and I always remember that, is they're not a period dress or you know, your garments that are. And where did you find that, or did you?
There actually is a store in Los Angeles
Oh, really?
with a catalog. They're online. You can call up and get anything you want. Pretty much.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I have outfits for the 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up to 1920.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because when we think of outfits, is the right word, we kind of think if the 1800s are all the same, but they aren't any more than the 1900s were all the same, or the 2000s are going to
Well, right now I'm watching The Gilded Age on TV, on HBO. It's just being released. And I'm waiting to see if the bustle disappears on time, because it disappears in 1 year.
Oh, it does.
So I know where they are chronologically in the story. And in 1887, it just disappears, based on a false article.
And you're going to write an article on it.
I'm just
You're
waiting
gonna
to
write
see
them a
if they
letter.
do it correctly, okay? I think they've done a lot of things very well in that show.
Yeah.
But I'm just waiting to see if they do away with the bustle, which you talk about fashion.
Yeah.
It was that quick, it disappeared.
Well, you see, I mean, and it's interesting that I have seen books on fashion in the library, and you can actually go to different years. And I'm sure the movie producers also do the same thing. They're looking
Yeah.
at see exactly what kind of, and actually we have a film director coming up pretty soon, or film producer coming up, and we'll discuss that perhaps with him. But because that's a period film that he will be talking about. But you're a historian, so.
Yes.
Outfits are pretty important because they play a very important part in our culture. When you think about the 1900s, when the skirts went up or down, depending on whether things were good or bad. I mean,
Yep.
did the same things happen in the 1800s with
Um,
women? You know,
no, modesty was so important.
it was.
Yeah, we had a tremendous double or triple standard, okay? We said modesty was important, then women who worked on farms would tie up their skirts and their ankles showed. Oh. And men would actually wait to help a woman get in a coach, hoping
So they
to
could look
catch
at her
up.
ankle?
You got it. Okay, and they had trouble with people sitting on the side of the stairs at the great hotels in Saratoga, because the women would have to lift their skirts and go up the stairs, and they might catch an ankle or maybe even a little more. Okay? As a matter of fact, when
Isn't it amazing
It
when
is.
you look at movies today?
Unbelievable, yes, yeah, absolutely. When they built there was a walkway that they built from the old Congress Hotel to the ballroom, which is across Spring Street. You can still see the arch in the bricks in the wall in the one building. And when they built it in a weekend, and it had an open floor on it. And so they didn't have to walk in the mud. They realized immediately that all the men were hanging around downstairs.
Oh,
So
look at
things
that.
never change. Okay, styles don't change, men don't change, things don't change.
And if they thought that ankle was or the back of the neck, I understand the back of the neck in some cultures is very erotic.
That one I haven't stumbled upon yet, but I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you've written 13 books. I got them all here. I'm just amazed at how prolific you are.
That's one word.
Well, I mean, this is amazing.
Thank
And
you.
tell me about the book that, we're going to talk about the history of Saratoga, but tell me about the book Annandale.
Okay.
And we have photos, so we
Yeah.
want to look at those photos at the same time. And you can see them on the screen when they bring them up.
Okay. Annandale is a big house in Saratoga that I've ridden by since I was a child.
That's the one with the two photos, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, the
So
two
it's on the cover of
photos.
the book, okay?
That's it.
There it is right there. And I used to drive by it, and the story I heard.
Now, where is that located in
It's
Saratoga?
on the corner of Clinton and Clement Street. It's right exactly by Skidmore College.
Oh, I
was
know.
actually
I
built
know
there.
where it is, yeah.
Okay, it was actually built there because what is now Skidmore College was originally a state with a park on it called Woodlawn.
Oh, okay.
And just like Grandson, what was happening at that time in the 1880s is people were building around parks. Okay, and so they actually built up there so they'd be right across the street from the big park.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was the Lathrop. And when I started to do the research on the Lathrop family, it was very fascinating because Mrs. Leland Stanford University, his wife was a Lathrop. And as a matter of fact, her name was Jean, and Mrs. Lathrop's oldest daughter was named Jean, after her, okay? So it was obviously a very closely knit family. And so I started doing the research on the house, and realized that she not only built that house, she built the next two north of it. So she built 3 houses at exactly the same time.
They didn't look the same, obviously.
No, they did not look the same, okay? 2 of them have 2 towers on it. The other one is much plainer. It's actually very, very beautiful inside. And I started to look into it. She had 3 daughters, and I thought, what was going on here? So she built one for herself, one for her 2 daughters who were married, didn't build one for the 3rd daughter. And that becomes an interesting kind of
I
problem,
would imagine.
you know? And the daughter winds up living down the street, but doesn't live there. And so in my mind, it's like, what happened? Why wasn't the other one built?
What's the story behind
You
the
got it.
story?
You
Yeah.
got it, okay.
And that's what's the meat of it.
Yeah, you got it. Well, this book is only the first of the series, and I'm not sure how many's in the series because I keep finding out more stuff. And it's what I did is I took factual things and fictionalized them. Okay, so I know that one of the daughters, because she has 3 daughters, one of them is extremely abused to the point at a time when nobody could get divorced. She was given an absolute divorce, allowing her to remarry if she wanted to. And those were almost impossible to get at the time. That's how cruel her husband was. Okay, and her husband, which is the end of the last series, what happens to him. But you start getting into it and you say, wow, this is an incredible story. So I start tracing it down, and the 4 grandchildren, which gets me like about the 3rd book out. 2 of them commit suicide. 1 dies in the Spanish influenza. The other winds up marrying and moving to Europe. Her daughter, one of her daughters, winds up in World War II sneaking pilots who were shot down out of France.
It's so contrary to the elegance that they grew up in.
You got, unbelievable. And that becomes a whole thing because they go bankrupt because they invest in poorly. Then they inherit more. Then they go bankrupt again. Then they inherit more. And so they do this wishy-washy of keeping the money going. But it was a twisted tale. I was reading the wedding list for the 3rd daughter who was there, and I realized
Where do you find all this?
newspapers.
So you go into the microfiche
I lived there. This is, it's like I think I have it.
Well, and the
inscribed in my-
minute you find one thing, you
You
find
got it.
something else, and that takes you on a different
You
trail.
got it. So when I'm looking at the
How
wedding gift,
exciting.
when I look at it, I look and I realize that the bachelors were friends of theirs because they're contemporaries, and the bachelor's daughter is the same age as her daughters. So then I started to say, wait a second, these people were all friends. They all interrelated. Then I started, so that's where the book came from. It's not just the one family. It's the bachelors and the Davidsons, and another one called the Hansons. And I can actually use their names because they have no descendants left. All of them passed out.
So then their names are up for grabs, so to speak?
Yeah, and I don't have to worry about nobody's gonna sue me because there's nobody left
Yeah.
to sue me, okay?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it, but
Hopefully they don't do any DNA.
That's true. That's true, because a couple of the husbands could have been kind of questionable along the way there, probably, all right? But anyway, I got into it. And after the one book, CNBC in Saratoga, which won the award for.
I mean,
for
this is
content.
like, when I look at these books, guys, if you're watching this, one book after the other, I can't imagine being able to put this many words on paper, really. And I love, I'm gonna get down here to, what is this, the curse? You got the curse, but the one I love is the crimes.
Crimes of Time?
Yeah.
Well, 6 of them are true crimes. That was 3 crimes, the other one is 6.
Yeah.
One of them is called Leave It to the Ladies, and that's crimes supposedly committed by women. But that may not have been totally true because there's, in one of the in that book, one of the stories is about a husband gets shot by his wife, and she's the only witness. And she swears he brought his girlfriend home, shot her in the head, then shot himself in the head 3 times. And that's rather difficult
Well,
to do.
that's gonna be a little tough to pull.
Yeah, well, they didn't charge her with anything.
They
so-
eat 3 times?
3 times
He must
she-
have had a repeating shot.
And this is in the time when you had to hand cock
Yeah,
the
you
gun.
had to cock it.
You had to cock it, then fire it. So it wasn't like rapid fire. But she was the only witness, and she said that's what he did, so.
Well, of
Got away
course.
with it,
I
yeah.
mean, why wouldn't you believe that,
Yeah,
right? He
yep.
stabbed himself 3 times in the heart,
Right.
okay, all right.
You're in the right idea.
Yeah.
One thing I would say to all men, based on the one Leave It to crimes committed by women, gentlemen, only worry if you've been misbehaving, and you came home and she said, I'd baked you something special.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because the poison is the more common thing.
They say that women are more apt to do poison because
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't like the messiness.
Yeah, I don't blame them. for that.
Yeah.
Because they have to clean up after.
Yeah,
You know, if you shoot
they aren't all
somebody, that's
Lizzie
okay.
Borden, right?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
So you get your ideas from the book, and I would assume that if you're researching, say this, and find something else, then it takes you to another book.
That's exactly what happened. The very first book was about one murder, came out it was the wealthiest man in Saratoga County. His wife was murdered, he was charged, he's tried twice, he's exonerated. Wrote the book. While I was writing it, they said these lawyers were brought in who were famous for these trials, which became this book.
See, that's what
So,
happens.
yeah, you go backward.
This
okay?
is what happens.
Yep, wind up going backward. Then I was researching the next one of those same ones, which is this one, which is another collection of stories, and I stumbled onto Maggie.
This is Crimes in Time,
Time, yeah.
Victorian rules, huh?
Yeah, the reason is because the people all got away with it because of Victorian rules. In that particular one, the guy who shot that's John Adams' grandson.
I'm just reading that here. What your President John Adams' great-grandson Johnson Lynch, former Saratoga Springs police officer John McDermott. These are names that we hear all the time in this area. And John Pear, a simple barber in Glens Falls, all have in common.
This guy,
They were all shot.
No, this one, yeah, right. This one, which is really kind of weird, is the shooting. The guy who shot him got away with it because he was having an affair with his wife, and he was stealing her affections. Therefore,
Stealing them?
he was therefore a thief, and he could be shot.
Oh my
That's why it's
God,
called
talk
Victorian
about a
rules.
play on words.
Okay, that he actually was exonerated, became one of the major manufacturers in Western Europe. But it's just kind of, they lead to other stories. Then, because I do tours of the city all the time, when I started getting the tour business, I said, I'm not doing architecture because as soon as I started to do that, somebody knows 10 times as much as I do.
Yeah.
So I started doing the families. And so this book is the story of all the families who built the houses on North Broadway.
Yeah.
It's not who lives there now. It's the people who built them originally, because I like to get along with my neighbors.
So
I don't
those are
talk about
the
this.
photos that you, the
That's
other
some of them,
photos? Let's
yeah.
bring those other photos up and let's talk about those houses and where they're
Okay,
located.
yep.
Uh,
The first one is Annandale,
Right?
okay. The second one right next to it, that's the oldest daughter's house,
Okay.
Jeannie, okay? And then,
Now we go to the four pictures. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
okay, the first one's the Bachelor Mansion.
The one on top?
Yeah, top left. That's the Bachelor Mansion. That was built in 1876. And the bachelors are in the book, the newest book, and they are a tremendous story. If I were
Okay.
going to do a biography, that would be up. The one next to it is Hanson. That's who the third daughter married.
And you mentioned the Hansons. before,
Okay,
yeah.
and she winds up living in the house. The third daughter winds up living in the house. It's the next big mansion south, but it's about a half a mile from the other two. The one on the lower left is the one where the daughter was so abused. That's Gunning. It's called Gunning Cottage, and that's really most of the theme of the first book is following that branch of the family. And then the last one is now called Saratoga Dream. It's on Union Avenue, and that house was at the same time. And so when you look at the money, one made the money, the Annandale family. The bachelors were from money, and this woman married into money. Okay, she
Yeah.
really was.
Money was up there, wasn't it?
Oh, she wound up owning 2 theaters on Broadway.
Well,
Times
I
Square.
remember, going up there, not remember, but whenever I go up to Saratoga and you go down that stretch, and of course, I don't always know the names, and those big, with the carriage house in the backs, and those are amazing. I don't even know how they can support them financially today.
They don't necessarily live there year-round. These are people who have a lot of money.
Oh, so they don't,
Some of them are year-round and some are not. It's kind of interesting.
yeah.
A great many of them, I don't tend to talk about my neighbors because that way I get along with them.
Yeah,
When they
yeah.
come to tour. But they're successful businessmen or they're people who primarily summer homes.
Because I've got to think that the amount of, the size of the houses, they must be like 6,000 square feet when you
Oh.
add it all up and,
Yeah, absolutely. There's whole sections that are much higher than that.
yeah.
Bachelor Mansion's like 17,000. Okay, so.
How many bedrooms? I'm just curious.
10.
Yeah, because they must, does somebody live in that house?
It's bed and breakfast now, an inn.
It's what?
Bachelor Mansion is now an inn.
An inn,
Anybody
okay,
can
so you
stay.
got the 10 bedroom.
Yeah, anybody can stay there. As a matter of fact, one time I was giving a tour of it, and the guy had seen me on a TV show, and he called up and he booked the tour with his wife. And to his surprise, to her surprise, when we were taking him through the tour, we handed him the key to the one that's the bridal suite because he had given it to her as a present for that night.
Oh,
And he had tricked her into coming up.
To get,
okay?
oh,
But
how
we made sure
sweet.
they stayed with us for the rest of the tour.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
couldn't go back too soon.
Yeah, that's really sweet, but I mean, I thought that those places up in Saratoga are amazing.
They
And,
are.
you know, the important thing is that they've seemed to keep that.
Yeah, and the amazing thing to me is where the people came from and how they came by their money. You know, who were these people? How could they?
Railroad and, you know,
Sometimes between railroads, investments, inheritance. Alexander Stewart, the guy who founded the first department store in the United States, one of them was his house. We have the Cluets from Troy, had summer homes there. So I mean, it's a real raffle. Many of them were built as summer homes, surprisingly enough.
really.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course Saratoga with the racetrack, how old is the racetrack? They just
1863.
celebrated, they just celebrated.
Yeah. 1863, 1864. What was different, see, in Newport, it was all big money and that was it. Saratoga was much more democratic. Your hotels kind of determine where you're gonna be. If you watch the Gilded Age right now, those people who are the snobs stayed at the Clarendon Hotel. People who were very wealthy in Nouveau Riche stayed in the United States Hotel. The aspiring and the professional people stayed in the Grand Union Hotel. So you segregated yourself by your hotel. But once you were there, you could mix. Because they make a big thing in Gilded Age about how they don't mix. All right?
Right,
And
but
the
they
Saratoga
did,
was
yeah.
far more democratic. When you went down to get water, you were down getting water,
Oh,
no matter
that
how
water,
rich you were.
please. My dad used to bribe me, if you just take a drink of that water, I'll buy you a candy bar. I didn't even want that candy bar that bad, no way. I didn't want to drink that. But you bring up something interesting, as growing up, my dad went into, I thought it was a Grand Union. Was that still
There was a
around?
Grand
Yeah.
Union
And he came and he went in there. Now, why we weren't with him, I have no idea, but my mother and I must have been shopping or something. And he came out and he said, I just had a drink with Monty Woolley.
Oh, yeah.
And who's Monty Woolley? You know, as a kid. Now I realize that, you know, it was a thrill for him.
Oh, yeah, Monty Will is a true local character.
Yeah.
Okay, he's in several movies, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Most people don't realize that when you go up on North Broadway, Charles Bracken's house is up there. He won 3 Academy Awards, the first ever Lifetime Achievement Award. And so these people, and that's what I like to do on my tours, is tell the families, not just, because the architecture will kill you. Real quick, super short story. I got called by an architectural association that were coming to Saratoga, will I give it to her? I said, nope, there's no way I'm doing architect art, you know, and
Right.
they said, no, we want to know about the families. So I take them outside, we're looking at the Bachelor Mansion, they go, you know, there are 7 forms of architecture there. I go, wow. Okay, so the very next tour I have is for spouses of English teachers. Now I'm emboldened. I walk outside.
You know there's 7.
You got it. So I stand there and I go, there's 7 forms of architecture in that building. And this guy turns to me, very politely comes over, taps me on the arm, he goes, I'm the Dean of Architecture at Yale. There are 8. I said, that's it. I am never, ever talking architecture again. Okay, because there's always gonna be somebody who knows much more
There's
than I do.
there's
You
around
got it.
7 or 8.
You got it. There's a lot of architectural styles there. I hope you enjoy it, okay? So, you know, it makes it fun, but I love giving the tours, I love the books.
Well,
And
I'm
we'll
telling you,
see.
it's been a pleasure to interview you and learn
Thank you.
a little bit more about Saratoga. Of course, I always find Saratoga to be a fascinating city to be in. And of course, the Universal Preservation Hall has been redone. I mean, amazing place there. So thank you for being here and thank you for all these great books. A lot of reading here.
Okay,
It's gonna
thank
go
you.
right into the summer.
Yeah, my
Maybe
pleasure.
even the fall.
Okay, my pleasure.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank
Now we're going to switch over to filmmaking, and of course, this is also historic. You made a film about Benedict Arnold. Okay, now Benedict Arnold. Now he was famous, and he was a patriot in some ways.
Many
from what
ways, yes,
From what
yes.
I learned.
That's true.
You're going to tell me more. Anthony Vertucci here is a writer and producer of Benedict Arnold, Hero Betrayed. Tell me about Benedict.
Yes, the Darth Vader of American history.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
without the singing.
Yeah, that's how we often describe him to young people. Yeah, he's one of the most fascinating and complex characters in all of American history, right? The perception of him, the great villain, the traitor, the great betrayer. But what people don't realize is that he was absolutely critical to the birth of the nation because he was probably one of the best.
British.
So his family originated from Rhode
Where
Island.
they all, yeah.
Yeah, and He came from some wealth. His great-great-great-grandfather was the royal governor of Rhode Island. So he really, from a young age, had the trajectory of a gentleman. And then his family, they lost a few of the children from disease and sickness, and it really destroyed the father, and he became an alcoholic, and they lost everything that they had gained by way of name, stature in the church, all of that. So he's one of the greatest generals we've ever produced. He was absolutely critical in this region, the Hudson region, of all the battles and events that took place here. He was at the center of it. So we're really not a country without him, but his story is really complex and deserves deeper exploration.
Yeah, and what gave you the urge to tackle this? Because you and Tom are both the writers and producers, Tom Mercer.
Yeah.
So how did you, I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'd like to check out Benedict Arnold?
Yeah.
Or were you a history professor or what? Tell me.
Well, actually, there's a couple of answers to that question. I've always loved history, particularly military history and the Second World War. My father was a combat Marine in the Second World War in the Pacific and fought in several campaigns. The last one was Iwo Jima.
Okay.
So I've always had a very realistic point of view on what combat really meant and what war really is, because
War is hell.
myself and my father would have really deep conversations about it. And it was only when I started really talking to him and being curious about it that he actually opened up about his wartime experiences.
Yeah,
So
a
that's
lot of people still will not talk about it.
no. And even when we interviewed him, we have them all on
What a great oral
yeah,
history.
yeah, we have him on tape, and there are times where he drifts, and there's a whole level of experience.
talking about.
You could never fully articulate to someone who's never experienced.
Yeah.
So I kind of began with that, but then me, Tom Mercer, who's the other writer and producer, and the director, Chris Stearns, we're all sons of this region. I grew up playing on the front yard of Fort Johnson. That's where I'm
There you
from.
go. Yeah.
Tom is from Saratoga. Chris is from Schenectady, Niskayuna. The cinematographer's from Scotia. The composer's from Saratoga. So growing up,
Did you all know each other? You didn't know each other to
Well-
start out with, did you? Or
Well-
how did you pull this group together?
Well, Chris Stearns and I started a film company. We made a feature film up in this region back in 1997, and then
Okay.
we moved the company to New York. But we actually met Tom through a film organization that we all helped found called Upstate
okay.
Independence. Mike Camoin and other people who are really
And
active
there
in
is
this
a big
region.
film
Oh, yeah,
set
there's-
thing
absolutely.
in this area, because we're looking at the number of national film companies that are coming here to do it, but there's also a group of filmmakers.
Oh, sure, certainly, yeah. And, they've been very busy. This organization now has been around for close to 30 years. So they're actively trying to get more productions up here. But
We've
finally.
got everything here.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got the river,
Oh, sure.
we've got historic buildings, we've got, you name it, we have everything
And
here.
more importantly, you have the talent.
Yeah.
So, when we decided to start talking about a project that we were potentially working on, we had heard all of the mythology and all of the stories about Benedict Arnold. When you travel up to upstate New York, he's considered a hero. There's more of an objective kind
Mm-hmm.
of storytelling about him, and clearly from his contributions to the Battle of Saratoga, that's
Right.
what made him
Yeah.
famous.
I mean, that's what we've all heard.
Right. So he just thought, that is one of the great untold stories of American history. Why would one of the most fervent patriots of the American Revolution, this person who is accomplished in his own right, gave up his own finances, was grievously wounded twice in Quebec and Saratoga, and nearly died? Why would this person turn his back on the cause that he fought so
And why?
vigorously for?
And why?
And we started to think, well, maybe if you start asking that question, you may not like the answers. So it really became a story of us exploring the front half of his heroic side, all of the events and all of the reasons
Showing
why he's
what a
considered
hero
a
he
hero.
was.
Everybody knows the treason part.
Yeah.
We don't really this story doesn't negate that. What it does is tell a more holistic picture
Yeah.
of the man.
Yeah, what was he really like?
What was he really
Yeah.
like, and what were these experiences, more importantly, from his point of view, not someone who wrote about him 20, 30, 40 years after the events that took place.
And now you brought a trailer, so let's take a
Sure.
look at the trailer and perhaps, and I know we won't hear the sound in the room here, but it'll be coming out there. And then we can talk about it afterwards.
My name is Benedict Arnold.
For freedom, liberty, and country!
The troops are inspired by their beloved commander. Those who served under him press the attack.
I am surely the victim of some villain who has been busy with my fame and basely slandered me. I am conscious of committing no crime, except it be a crime to sacrifice my interest, ease, and happiness in the public cause. Their extremely cruel actions surprises and mortifies me. By heavens, I will have justice. I cannot continue to hold this commission without a court of inquiry into my conduct that clears my name of every false allegation.
I'll see you on the duty field, sir!
Nothing could exceed the bravery of Arnold. He made heroes of his men.
I think he has shown himself the most enterprising man amongst the rebels.
My country will rise.
General Benedict Arnold, heroic patriot leader of the American Revolution.
Okay, now I have a lot of questions. Ed. Costumes,
Yes.
location, military. Where'd you get those? I'm looking at Fort Ticonderoga up in that area is where you filmed it, did you think? Because I see a few scenes that look like that's where it was.
Yep, yeah. It's, I think when we actually describe what we've done, it's almost hard for people to comprehend the kind of the epic scale of what I think we.
I can't even
What I think we
imagine
pulled
you
off.
did. I don't even know.
Because
I'd ask what your budget was, but I'm afraid it'd be a big number.
It's a challenge pulling off recreating the 18th century, but
Costumes, where'd you get the costume?
one of the great things that we had going for us was we really enlisted the reenacting community. All of these
because
people.
they have a lot.
Yeah, we had exclusive rights to shoot the 225th Battle of Saratoga recreation.
Oh,
We were
okay.
literally.
So you didn't have to do that yourself.
Right. So we literally had a Super 16 millimeter camera in the middle of that reenactment. So we were like combat photographers right in the middle of all of it. So and we shot
did
over
double
many
duty,
years.
yeah.
We rented a gigantic sloop and ported it out in Rhode Island to shoot
you
all
went down to
of
Rhode
the
Island.
deck
Yeah.
scenes. We flew to London to shoot the burial crypt of where Arnold is buried. We went
He's
to.
buried in London?
He's buried in London
Okay.
in the crypt of the Battersea Church, which
Okay.
was Princess Diana's church. So yes, we shot probably in every historical location you could possibly imagine on the Eastern Seaboard.
And where'd you get all your actors? Did
So
you
a
go
lot of
down
our
New York
actors-
City, down to Equity or what?
A lot of our actors are all regional.
Okay.
The actor who played Benedict Arnold was Peter O'Meara. He was in the series Band of Brothers.
Oh, God.
But most of the actors of the other principal parts were all people from this
You
region.
got such great actors. I mean,
Yeah.
you already heard,
Yeah.
you were here earlier with Patrick White. I mean, there
Oh.
are an abundance of.
The crew talent, the acting talent, the artisans, the people, we could never have pulled this off without the help and generosity of so many people. We had people help us, but the reenacting community helped us literally build an entire section of Brayman's Redoubt on my friend's farm. So we just went to extraordinary lengths to kind of recreate this whole entire thing.
What an accomplishment this
Yeah,
is.
thank you.
And it's
Thanks.
so. But where can people see this? Because we want them.
Yeah.
I mean, and my next question is: are you thinking of this as another Hamilton?
Well, it's very fortuitous timing wise, right?
Yeah.
That is in the lexicon of our thinking, right? That
I mean, that's
that
the
he
first thing
brought
I thought.
that.
Is this going to be another Hamilton?
Right. That he brought this famous character and brought more deeper understanding to who Hamilton really was and the people who participated in those events. I think our film is very much like that, right? We're bringing a new story to the historical record, and that's really exciting to be at the vanguard of something like that.
In doing your research, because you had to do you're the writer, you and Tom.
Yeah.
You had to do a lot of research in order to come up with authenticity, because you didn't want it to be, let's make him do this or that.
Yeah.
No, you had to really
Right.
know what happened. Did you use, I don't know, were there newspapers? Well, I'm sure there were newspapers, but are they archived? Tell me, did you go to the museum in Washington? What is it?
So we did research
Archive.
across the board, but the story is loosely based on the book by James Kirby Martin.
Okay.
He wrote one of the definitive biographies of Arnold, and how we partnered with him is that we had read his book, and we, like him, wanted to tell a different side of the Arnold story. He originally started writing the book to corroborate all the nefarious things you know about Arnold.
Right.
Turns out that project did a 180, because by the time the book was done, he was defending him. So he did a lot of primary research, first-person research on all of the
That you did not have to replicate.
that we did not have to replicate. But then we also enlisted 13, 14 of the foremost authorities on the American Revolution. They call them the giants of the Revolution. They all participate and contributed their own ideas and research to the project. So yeah, it was an accumulation of a lot, and then we had to stitch it all together, and that was really
And make a story that
right.
is compelling.
And you had to collapse a long period of
Yeah,
time into
yeah.
a cohesive
And you wanted
narrative.
people to be able to follow it and
Sure,
stuff, not
yeah.
do little vignettes. You have
Right,
to make it
right,
a
right.
story that tells. So how can we see it? And you didn't tell me
Yeah,
that.
so you can right now it's streaming
Okay, on
just
what?
about everywhere. So you can find it on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Roku, Vimeo, Vudu. It seems like it's
I don't know that
everywhere.
one
Yeah, no. So you can find it
Okay.
and on most of these streaming properties online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how are you getting compensation on this?
Oh, whenever somebody rents it, we
Okay.
get a percentage of
Yeah,
the rental
yeah.
fee.
Yeah, because you put a lot of time
We
and
did.
money into, of course,
Yeah.
if it's your passion, it's sort of like this show is my passion and I don't get a dime from it. But you just do it because you really
Yeah.
love it. But
Yeah.
if you've got to pay your actors and stuff, no matter how much you love it, you still have expenses.
Yeah, it did.
Did you get a lot of backers?
We did. We had people who gave us, loans towards the project. We had grant funding. We had some sponsorship funding. But yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges, just the fundraising effort
Do you
involved.
think this film, as we look forward, do you believe that this film might be shown in schools? Or,
Yeah, so-
it seems to me that this is an historically accurate portrayal of the early part of Benedict Arnold. It seems to me we're thinking that our children and young people should have critical thinking.
Yes, we agree.
And critical thinking seems to be out the window anymore. It's like whatever is on Facebook today, but when you look at life, there's always two sides to things, and maybe the one side is pretty crappy, but it's still another side. But the point is that unless we have critical thinkers, and it seems like something like this would encourage critical thinking.
Yes, absolutely. And we had 3 mandates when we were shooting the film, just as people who were producing it. The first one was we wanted to make sure that we were contributing something to the historical record. So we were really telling a story that had never been told before. The second mandate was we wanted to make sure that we could use portions of the film as a marketing tool to help market all of these amazing historical and heritage regions in upstate New York. And then the third mandate was exactly built around what you mentioned, was the making the film available as an educational resource to students, because we wanted to make sure that they, as part of that critical thinking, that they had objective stories from a history that would challenge their preconceived notions of what our founding was like in real life. And a more objective story of the men who participated in these events. Because we think a lot of modern people really filter the 18th century and the people of those times through their own modern lens. And that's actually not a good thing to do, because they were driven by different motivations, different cultural times.
Yeah, we can't put ourselves into that because we don't know what they were experiencing at the time.
And look, I think there's a lot of armchair quarterbacking when it comes to Arnold, right? I would have never done this. But we also say, well, just imagine someone has you against the wall and they're punching you in the face over and over and over again. Yeah. Eventually, you're going to clench your fist and punch back.
Right.
And I think, eventually Arnold became disillusioned with the civilian and military leadership of the revolution and questioned it. He wasn't the only one. He was just such a person of great consequence that when he did return his allegiance back to Britain, the colonists went crazy. So in many ways, he almost galvanized the American colonists even more.
Then they really got behind it. Yeah, see,
and again, they wouldn't have been upset if it wasn't someone as heroic as him.
Yeah,
so his story,
make them martyrs.
right? So his story, and that's what we're trying, as part of these educational resources. It's one of the reasons why we brought the Battle of Valcour Island to life. It'd never been told before, that story, but younger people are used to seeing visual effects, right? Navies come to life.
Oh, yeah.
We literally recreated those digital ships from 18th century blueprints of the actual vessels. So we wanted to excite a younger crowd and show them that this is not a Ken Burns documentary where you're panning on a photo.
You're not doing any CGI.
Right, but we're bringing CGI and visual effects and bringing these events to life for real. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I want to applaud you for taking a challenging subject and trying to recreate, not recreate, but to perhaps have a film that recreates what we think, I guess. That's the wrong way of saying it. Recreating sounds like you're making something up, but you're not.
You know what it does? It challenges your preconceived notions of something.
Yeah, I love that, the way you've said that.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure to meet you too,
Anne.
Anne. Thank you.
I'm excited to hear about the film. I'm really going to check it out. So,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to I'll tell you who's coming up next show. We've got a great show coming up. We've got Don Hyman, and he's going to give a tribute to Otis Redding. He died at 26 years old. Amazing, and we'll find out more about that. And we'll be talking about Black History Month as well. And of course, the soup stroll is coming up in Schenectady. Who doesn't love good soup? And you can get to vote on it too. And then we've got a really interesting guest coming up, and we're going to be, I call it Conversations. And we're going to be talking about many of the issues in our area, whether it was St. Rose what was going on there, the corruption in politics. I mean, see, that doesn't go away. Who knows? But anyway, so we have so much to talk about, and I do want to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day from our crew to your home. So thank you for watching today, and be sure to watch our next show. We got a great one coming up.
Sucker soup on a hot summer day. Coffee comes back in a nerve-wracking way. The dishes and laundry take the garbage out. What a day, what a day, what a day.